Hello, I hope you're okay and fine. So today I want us to go through the measures of disease in population, how we normally measure diseases and the parameters that we normally use in the measurement of diseases. So epidemiologists use various methods and approaches in quantifying or measuring disease cases in population. And these methods include we can use counts, we can use ratio, we can also use proportion, as well as percentages and rates. So I want us to go one method after the other and see how they're normally quantified or measured. So the first one is on count. The first method is count, and this is the number of individuals with a specified quality in a defined population. For example, if we want to count the number of, or to know the number of females in a population, that is the count, because the specified quality is being a female. If we want to count the number of people suffering from hypertension, the specified quality is hypertension, presence of the disease hypertension, and then you will count the number of people with hypertension. Then another method is ratio, and this is expresses the relationship between two numbers in the form of x and y, where the x is not in any way related to y, or is not part of y, or the y is not part of x. They are individuals. So we are just looking at the relationship between one type of data with the other type of data, which are not related in any way. So for example, the ratio of males to female can be expressed as 1:3. So males do not perform part of female, and female do not perform part of male. Let's see proportion. Proportion is a specific type of ratio in which the numerator is included in the denominator and the resultant value is expressed as part of the whole. That's why I'm saying the numerator is normally part of denominator. An example is the proportion of males in the class, in a certain class, is 4 per 10 students. So the 4 here is form part and parcel of the 10 student. The number of female in a class is 40 out of 100. The 40 is part and parcel of what? The 100. So the numerator is part of denominator, unlike in the ratio where each individual data represented its own perspective or quality or specified quality. Another example is 40% of community members are male. It is very common measure of disease in various epidemiological descriptive studies. We normally usually use this proportion. We normally use this proportion because in majority of the epidemiological studies, in order to see the percentage, now when you come to the percentage, in order to see what percentage of a specified quality forms a part of the whole population. So the next method is percentage, and it's the proportion that is expressed per 100. So percentage is an example or is a proportion, but this is a specific or a special proportion because this proportion normally expresses the data per 100 or in percentages. So for example, 40% of the community members are male, and it is a very common measure of disease in various epidemiological descriptive studies. But definitely, we normally get percentages from our proportion, because when we say 400 per 1,000, we need to know what percentage of student maybe a female or male in a class. So if the class have 200 students and the number of males is 100, to find the percentages, you need to take 40 or 200, 40 divided by 200 times 100 for you to get the percentage. So percentage forms is a special example of proportion. Then the last method is rate, and it is a special form of proportion that includes specification of time m. So rate is a special form of proportion that includes specification of time. The percentages didn't include any aspect of time, but for the rate is another example of a proportion that normally we include time and population. So to make comparison between two different areas, or between what is happening in district A now and what happened 10 years ago, we cannot simply compare the total number of cases. To give a proper answer, we need to know the total number of people in each district, that is the population at risk. So we are including both time aspect and the population. So this can be defined, for example, district A reports that there are 100 patients registered with leprosy. District B reports 150 of leprosy. District A has a population of 20,000, where district B has 60,000. So to compare the rates, we can find out how many cases there would be per 1,000 population. So we are including an aspect of population here. So for us to be able to compare which among of the following is bigger or has a bigger proportion than the other, we need to include an aspect of population for us to be able to compare the two. So this use of rates shows us that leprosy is twice as common in district A, even though it reports fewer cases, as you can see here. Even if it reports fewer cases as compared to B, the number of people, or the proportion, or the rate at which people are getting leprosy in district A is higher as compared to the rate at which people are getting leprosy in district B. So common rates which can work in our catchment areas are infant mortality rates, which measures all deaths from all illnesses that young children get before they are 1 year old. So let's take an example, or another example. For example of coronavirus. So you might find the number of people being reported in a certain country are very many, but because the population at risk is also very many, or is also very high, you might find the rate at which the people are getting the coronavirus is lower as compared to places like Kenya, where we have fewer people that are at risk, also reporting fewer cases. Let me repeat that explanation. I am saying an example of coronavirus. For example, if you compare USA and Kenya, you might find in Kenya the rate at which people are getting coronavirus is higher as compared to the rate at which people get coronavirus in USA. Even if USA is reporting 1,000 cases in each and every day, but here in Kenya we are reporting 200 cases in a day. The people that are at risk in Kenya are fewer as compared to the USA. But you might find the rate at which Kenya is getting the coronavirus being higher, because rates will definitely show you the magnitude. Let me use the word magnitude of the disease or incidences of diseases. So I hope up to that point we are together. So those are the methods of disease measurements. We can count, we can use ratio, we can use proportion, we can use percentages, but remember, percentages and rates are an example of proportion. So let's see the application of measures in population, or the application of all those methods in population. And we have two types of rates. We have incidence rates and prevalence rates that we normally use in our epidemiology, or in any epidemiologists normally use. So what is the difference between incidence and prevalence? We normally measure diseases using either incidence or prevalence. We will start with incidence. So the incidence of a disease or health condition refer to the number of persons in a population who develop the disease condition during a specified period of time. The number of people who develops, mark this word, who develops the disease condition during a specified period of time. The determination of incidence requires that a population is followed up over a period of time through a prospective study. Prospective studies normally study the development of diseases in a population. So the diseases that will develop in future. That's what prospective study looks at. So incidences of diseases, as I've already said, normally look at or measures the development of new cases of a disease. So incidence rate is the number of new cases in a population. Number of new cases, they're not old cases. For example, if you want to look at the incidence rate of malaria, we look at how many people have been developing malaria, or not have been, will develop malaria in a period of 1 month. So we still have to put an aspect of time and population here. So the specific duration of time in a given population, or the number of people developing a particular type of disease at a particular time in a given population, divide by the population at risk of developing the disease condition at the beginning of the duration of interest, at the beginning. So if, for example, we want to know the incidence rate of coronavirus from now to December, so we'll take the number of people that will develop coronavirus from now up to December. Then you divide by who is at risk of getting this coronavirus times K. The K, you might opt to use 100 people per 100, or the number of people you develop per 100 cases, or per 100 population, number of population, or number of people in the population. You can use 10,000, you can use 1,000, depending on the number of people at risk in the denominator. So K can change to maybe from 100, 10,000, 1,000, 100,000, depending on the kind of population, the number of population you're dealing with here. So an example, I've given an example here. In Kilanga village, with a population of 1,500 males and 2,000 females, a prospective study is conducted over 2 years to establish the incidence of cancer of prostate within the population during which 30 males were or developed the disease. Calculate the incidence of the disease in the population. First, prostate cancer is only gotten by what? By who? By the males only. So you won't include the female here. So for incidence rate, the number of people who developed the disease are 30. So 30 divided by the population at risk is 1,500 and not 3,500, because those that are at risk of getting the disease is males only. Then you have to times or to multiply your answer by K, which may take to be 100 in this case. You can also use 10,000 depending. That's why I'm saying it depends on the population at risk number. So for ease of the interpretation, we multiply by K, which may take to be 100 in this case, because 1,500 is not that large number. So the incidence is equals to 2 cases per 100 males in the population of Kilanga village within the 2 years of study were at risk of getting prostate cancer. So you take the number of people that will develop the disease in that specific period divided by the population at risk. Then you times by your K. K, you're the one to decide what kind of K you're going to use. We're done with incidence. Remember, incident is new cases. Then for prevalence, it is the total number of persons who have their disease condition of interest at a particular time. Prevalence rates are calculated at a point in time or over duration of time. You can either use a point prevalence or a period prevalence. For example, the number of cases or the number of old cases or existing cases of coronavirus up to today, that is point period. When you're dealing with the duration of time, for example, in the past 2 years, the number of cases that have been reported for the past 2 years, that is period prevalence. So the information required for point prevalence is obtained from cross-sectional studies right now at a point in time, while period prevalence is obtained from a retrogressive study. What happened like 10 years ago, like 2 years ago, like 3 months ago? That is retrospective studies. You study diseases that have already developed at a particular period of time. So point prevalence is the number of existing cases of diseases or condition at a specific point in time or at a specific period in time. So you take the disease condition at a specific point in time or period in time, then you divide by the total population at that point in time or the population at risk, then you multiply by K. The only difference between prevalence and incidence, for incidence, you deal with new cases. For prevalence, you deal with existing cases, both the new and the old. The existing cases. What number of coronavirus do we have today in Kenya? So you'll calculate whoever that will be diagnosed today and whoever that was diagnosed like 3 months ago, depending on the period that you're dealing with. Then remember to multiply by your K. An example, data collected in March 2006 at Kilanga village revealed that there were 140 cases of malaria at the time of data collection. So if Kilanga village has a total population of 3,500 persons, calculate the point prevalence of malaria at that point or that at that time. So you take the existing cases at that particular time, you divide by the population, then you multiply by your K to make your data easier to express. So you'll find 0.04. When you multiply by 100, you'll find 4 cases in 100 people developed malaria or had developed malaria at maybe March. Yes, in March 2006. You are dealing with existing cases. when it comes to period prevalence, is the number of existing cases of disease or condition over a specified duration of time multiplied by K. And of course, you'll have to divide by average population over the specified duration of time. For example, records obtained from Kilanga village indicated that for the previous 6 months, as you can see, is a duration of time, inclusive of March, the number of malaria cases was 700. So calculate the period prevalence of the disease, assuming that the population remained constant at 3,500 over that duration. There were no new cases of births or death. So you take the number of diseases over that specific period that were discovered in that specific period of time, the existing cases at that particular time, or that specified period of time, you divide by the population who are at risk at that point, at that particular time, then you times by K, or you multiply by K to make your data be able to be understood. So in this case, you use 100. So you will find 2 cases per 100 people had disease or had this malaria in Kilanga village over the last 6 months in 2006, or whichever time that you're dealing with. What is the importance of incidence and prevalence rates? Incidence and prevalence rates are important for the following reason. Number one, incidence rates help us to know how fast the disease is spreading, infecting, or affecting. So an example, incidence rates help us to know how fast the disease is spreading, infecting, or affecting people. When you want to know how the disease is spreading, we can't just use numbers. For example, if I say, in each and every day we are reporting 200 cases of coronavirus in Kenya, that data will not be, or will not make much sense. But if I say, in each and every 10 people, 2 people develops the disease each and every day. 2 people will develop the disease in each and every day, or are developing the disease. 2 per 10 people are developing the disease in a day. I think that will make sense, or it will show how the disease is spreading among the population and how it is infecting, and who is being infected, and also who is being affected by the people or by the disease. So it will normally help us to be able to know how the disease is spreading and how is it affecting people and infecting people. The next one, prevalence rates help us to know how many people are having a disease in the population. So how many people are we having? For example, right now we're having around 4,000 cases of coronavirus in Kenya, or we have the existing number of cases is around 4,000 cases in Kenya. So it will help us to know how many people are now currently having the disease. So prevalence can also give an indication of how fast people are recovering, dying from the disease, and how many are in chronic stage of the disease. That we are being given each and every day. We are normally being given by the Minister of Health the number of people that are recovering, the number of people that are dying from the coronavirus, and the number of people who have been recovering and who is at critical stage or chronic stage of the disease. So by that, it will help you know how severe is this disease. If the disease is so much severe, you'll find many people going to chronic stage or even dying, and less people recovering. So with this knowledge, you can be able to interpret and predict disease epidemiological patterns and hence plan for intervention. We are able to know how is the pattern of coronavirus. Is it going up, or is it going down, or is it just flat? Is it stagnant? So by that, it will help you know what are the interventions that the Kenyan government is putting in place, is ensuring the county governments and county hospitals are equipped and are ready to receive more cases because the cases are increasing day by day. We are having more people suffering from the disease. The prevalence is high. The incidence is also very high. So you'll be able to know what are the interventions can we use or can we put in place in order to mitigate or in order to prevent the disease from spreading further. So you can determine if a disease is an epidemic or endemic by use of the prevalence or incidence rates. So those are the two types of rates that you normally use. Remember, we have incidence rates and prevalence rates. And those are the examples of the rates that you normally have. So I think that will be the end of today's lecture. It was a short one, but I wanted us to know the rates of diseases, and then next week we'll start with the rates of or mortality. We normally also refer to as morbidity rates. We also next week deal with morbidity rates. God willing. So all the best as it goes through. I will also post a YouTube video for the same for you to be able. So I want you to go through this through this video for us to be able to understand more on morbidity rates. Those who are morbidity rates because we're measuring diseases. So go through this. It will also cover some parts that we'll also cover with you next week. And so go through it, and all the best as you go through it. So I hope you're now okay with the measurement of morbidity or measurement of diseases. So next week, let's start with measurement of mortality or the cases of deaths, because today we've done with the cases of diseases. So all the best as you go through the recordings, and I hope this also finds you well. So bye.